Back in the early 1920s, while class prejudices and religious divisions were taking place in the United Kingdom, two young runners demonstrated an unyielding determination as they trained for the 1924 Paris Olympics. One ran to challenge those prejudices, while the other sought to glorify God through his athletic prowess. Now, this compelling narrative was beautifully illustrated in the 1981 British historical sports drama film Chariots of Fire, and is now being revisited by the creative team at Rosebud Theatre here in Alberta. Aaron Krogman is a board member of the Rosebud Fellowship and part of the cast of this very exciting project. Aaron, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thanks very much.
So how did your background in theatre at Rosebud School of the Arts really prepare you for this role at Chariots of Fire?
Well, it's a post-secondary professional theater training program, and I ate it up as a student in the 2000s. I came in 2004, and yeah, you know I've been doing shows. I think this is my 20th production for Rosebud Theater, so I've done a fair few of them, and yeah, I feel like it's the thing I do. It's the thing I know to do and have trained to do and have practiced doing.
So Aaron, can you describe the unique challenges of portraying your character, Harold Abrahams, in Chariots of Fire?
Yeah, I I think the probably the biggest challenge for me is the running. We're running on stage. We're running full out, and our, like I'm not as young as I once was, and I got to take care of my joints and my knees because it's a long run. I think that's probably the foremost challenge that we've been working with and rising to. Yeah, it's been successful so far.
So do you have to carb up, maybe have a little bit of spaghetti or maybe some rice?
Well, actually, I've actually lost about 25 pounds since Christmas.
Wow.
I've been doing some running and a bit more just fitness and as a way to prep. If I'm carrying less weight, it's less hard on the joints.
So did your previous experience of performing the role of Jesus and the Canadian Badlands Passion Play really influence your performance?
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely a physically demanding, lots of running, moving, covering all kinds of ground. I think one time I mapped it out for the Passion Play. I do about 7 kilometers in a run through of the play, and it's elevation and running and all kinds of stuff. So in terms of the physical demands of Chariots of Fire, it feels really similar, but also a lot of Jewish context. My character Harold Abrams is Jewish and has that as his heritage, and Jesus also, is alive and at the time of lots of really interesting time in Jewish history, and so there's lots of overlap for sure.
Now, did the directors actually talk to you a little bit about the cardio that's involved with some of your roles here?
Yeah. I think they just assume that I'm up for it, but I would say that I'm a dad. I have a couple girls that are pretty young, and most of my exercise in the last few years has been like fighting with car seats in the back seat, you know, carrying kids. So getting my legs back in shape has been good, but I'm excited for it too.
So Aaron, what aspects of your character in Chariots of Fire really resonated with you the most?
You know, I think it's the psychological aspect of high achievement that I think is really fascinating. These characters are driven to perform and to achieve and to win, to succeed, and whether they do or don't is tricky, and it's a lot to navigate. And Harold in particular, he's motivated to matter to his dad. He's got older brothers who are high level achievers, and he wants to matter to his dad. I think he feels like he doesn't, and um, that's a big piece of what's been really fascinating about exploring this character.
So how did physically demanding roles like the one in Chariots of Fire impact your approach to being a performer?
Um, in some ways, it takes so much of the focus. There are times when you do a role, and the thing you give all your attention to is the character or the accent or the some psychological aspect. But when you're like, how my legs are they going to be okay today? Are they going to hurt? It takes so much of your attention, and then the acting actually just becomes natural, and you don't overwork it, you don't worry it. You're paying attention to the immediate now of what's happening with your body, which is actually a great way to think about acting. And so I appreciate the physical aspect of it because it helps you do your job better, I think.
So during a theatrical run, do you kind of try and stay in character as much as you can, even when you're off set? Or how does that really work for you? Are you able to just turn it off and on fairly quickly?
I think it's a little bit of both. This particular character that I'm playing, I'm busy the entire time. I when I step off stage for a moment, it's maybe for a scene, and I've got a costume change. I'm getting ready for the next thing, so I'm very present mentally with with Harold, what's happening for him, what's just happened, what's next, what he wants. It's a roller coaster that doesn't really leave me alone the entire run, and that's really exciting too. I love that aspect of getting to play Harold.
You know, some actors I've chatted with in the past say sometimes it's psychologically damaging some of the roles that they take on because they really put themselves into this character, learning more, doing the research of the character, and it really impacts their lives even long term. So let me ask you something. Can you talk about the psychological depth of your character and how you really prepared for it and how it's maybe impacted you personally?
You know, I I agree that it can be challenging to navigate difficult emotional and psychological moments when you're playing characters. Um, I've done it enough times now, I guess, that I kind of trust it. I know what it is, and I know what it's like to move through big runs, long runs of plays, and spending a lot of time. And I think it's a little bit of the discipline of what you pay attention to. When we take breaks, we laugh a lot. We you swing into the lighter side of life, especially when you're dealing with stuff that's kind of heavy. And I think Harold is a role that it's there's a lot of heaviness in it, but at the same time, it's always an opportunity to explore what's true and what's alive for me. And I the question he gets asked over and over again is, why do you run? And the implication is that he doesn't know, and he's making a mess of his life because he doesn't know himself well enough. And it's an opportunity for me to ask myself the same question each time. Why do I do what I do? How well do I know myself? And so it's just a great platform for me to like grow as a human being every time I do it. I think that's part of how I navigate some of what can be difficult.
Didn't they ask the same question of Forrest Gump once? Oh no, they just yelled, "Run, Forrest, run!" That's what it
Yeah.
was. That's right. Okay, Aaron, let's talk about one of the pivotal scenes here in your confrontation with Eric Little.
Yeah, I love that scene. Um, these two guys have been battling, but it's almost like Harold wants to have a fight. It's like he's in the ring, wants to have a fight, and Eric, he's it's like he's a pacifist, and he actually cares more about Harold than Harold realizes. And I think what happens in that scene is that Harold realizes he's got a friend and someone who actually cares about him and sees him, and is the exact antidote to all the prejudice that he's been experiencing in his life. Eric really represents a brother in many ways, and I think that's where that really becomes apparent to Harold in that scene. He pushes and pushes, and Eric just is generous with him, and it's a beautiful thing. It's unexpected and beautiful, and it makes the difference for Harold, I think, in his big journey of letting go of all the stuff that he carries and is burdened by.
So, Aaron, let's talk a bit about your experience working with the director and the rest of the Cats and Chariots of Fire.
Morris Ertman is the director. I've worked with him lots. He's been a huge part of my life as an artist. He's the director I've worked with more than anyone else, and I think this particular show really suits his style of directing. You know, and it's just been a blast. I love working with Morris. It's a known quantity for me, and yet it's always kind of challenging and interesting. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pull it off. And yet it's a it's a really fruitful and alive rehearsal hall with Morris all the time. And I would say too, there's lots of new cast members to Rosebud Theater, people who are in Rosebud for the first time on a show, and you never know what you're going to get sometimes, like with us in-house people, and then the newcomers. And I'm always a little bit nervous if they're going to like me and how it's going to go, but it's been such a great cast. Like unbelievably great. I've been so blessed by it. I feel like it's a really warm, dedicated, professional, hardworking, lots of heart across the board, and it's been a great joy to be with them and to hit the deck every day with them.
That's wonderful to hear. Now, outside of all of the running, what were some of the other challenging aspects of your role in Chariots of Fire?
Um, it's an accent show. Like it takes place in the UK, and there's lots of accents, and dialect is always kind of exciting to get to do, and I've really enjoyed that. I had to kind of pay attention to some of the pronunciations, and um, we want to make it clear for audiences too that that come, and you got to fill the house. There's Scottish accents, there's English accents, there's some American accents and that's really always, I love accent plays. It's always exciting to get to find that new voice and flavor, and it informs so much of the storytelling. So yeah, it's great for that too.
Give me your best Scottish brogue. Can you give me one?
Well, all right. I'll do my best, but I don't do Scottish in the play. I do British.
That's right,
So
British, okay.
I haven't been practicing Scottish, although sometimes when I'm in a scene with someone doing Scottish, it kind of like triggers me
Does
to
it rub off
respond in
on you,
Scottish.
maybe?
Yeah, but I try to fight that as best I can.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
say you're from Liverpool, England. Give me a nice British accent.
Oh yeah. What do you think? What do you think of this accent? I don't
Okay.
know. Yes.
We'll order some kippers and bits. Now, what are your thoughts on the
hmm
trend of adapting films like Chariots of Fire into stage plays, Aaron?
I think it's cool. I think it's challenging. I think people come with a bit of an expectation, and so you want to you want people to be have come away with their expectations met, more than met, and that's the challenge and the hope. But I think my experience of the people who have come to see the play, like, we're achieving that. My uncle Tony came yesterday, and he just could not stop talking about how amazed he was by it, and he was in that kind of like afterglow. He just could not believe what he had seen in the theater, and that feels really great. People are like, how are they going to possibly do that on the stage? And they come with that question, and it gets answered in an amazing way. I love that.
How about some of the spiritual elements of the play and planting seeds for Christ along the way?
Well, I think that's happening in this play. Like, we get to see Eric Little kind of live out following his convictions and his faith, in a challenging way. And in the end, it's a really fruitful thing, and I think who we are and the fruit we bear with the lives we live is measured in how well we love people around us. And I think that's what the play exemplifies, is that Eric Little loved people. He just put it into practice. And he loves the person who should be his enemy in the play. He loves him. That's Harold. I think sometimes there's a spectrum of, like, really explicit evangelism, and then really implicit. And I think on the storytelling side, where we tend towards the implicit in general. And this play it kind of rides the line between the two, and it does it in a really lovely way. It's nuanced. Um, it's a play about running, but it's a play about what people believe, and it's about who they are. And I think it isn't always often that Christianity in media gets a fair shake, and it's sometimes two dimensionally maligned. And this play is not that. We get to see someone as a full human, three-dimensionally living out the challenge and opportunity of a faith-filled life, and that's Eric Little for sure.
Aaron Krogman is a board member of the Rosebud Fellowship and part of the cast of Chariots of Fire, which is running at the Rosebud Theatre until May 25th. Aaron, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.